Okay.
Okay, we're about ready to get started. My name is McKenna Sanderson. I'm the president of AIGA Oklahoma. I'm super excited to introduce Jimmy Bryant from ATOMICCHILD, all the way from Fort Collins, Colorado. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I will give you the floor.
Thank you so much for having me. So basically, kind of what I'm going to talk about tonight is building your own brand through patience and perseverance, and it's going to follow my journey how I kind of went through the whole thing from my influences are all the way up through high school, college, and then starting to build my own brand. So yeah, I'm going to start. Also afterwards, I have a couple stickers to give you if you want them. If not, hope you're sticker people. Stickers. But all right, so we get started. So kind of probably like most of you, I've been drawing forever or creating forever. There wasn't a particular time in my life where I can remember being like, oh, I'm going to start drawing. It's just something I've always done. Probably has to do with a little bit with my mother. She was kind of creative. She did like ceramics and needlepoint and all that stuff. When I was younger, I was born in Maine, pretty much right on the Canadian border. I think it was like first or second grade. I won a design I don't know if it was a design contest. I drew something, and it won. So my mom says, and it went all the way around the state of Maine. So I guess that was kind of my first injection of like, ooh. But I was a little kid, so I didn't understand. And then we got moved out to South Dakota. My dad was in the Air Force, so we got transferred out there. And I grew up on a small little 100-acre farm in the middle of South Dakota. And yes, it was, this kind of farm right there. There's me with one of our pet pigs, a little tiny pet pig. So yeah, I grew up on the farm. I didn't have a lot of influences out there. This was my art pad, the old plotter paper on a printer. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, but as a kid, like I always drew on those, and the fun thing was is you could leave them connected and make scenes. Like I used to do that as a little kid. I remember, like I would do like Christmas scenes and like add on to it each year. So that was really fun. I was also really lucky as I got older. One of my really good friends, his dad was he's a pretty famous sculptor in that area. So. I was probably too young to understand that like what this meant, but as I got older, kind of in high school, I started to realize that even though I grew up out in the middle of nowhere, I really had an example of a successful artist. Like he had his own studio, he had a nice house, but that's just something I really look at an early or younger age. Was just like I think a lot of people. Or now it's easier because you have social media, but I didn't have social media then; it didn't exist. The internet barely existed. So that was just a really big thing for me is to see that you can actually have success in art. Obviously, I was a kid of the 80s, so I kind of feel like these things here, I grew up watching He-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe. I think the biggest thing with all those is every one of those cartoons made toys, obviously, right? So it's kind of also the first time of like realizing like, hey, there's this flat dimensional art that can be made into products. Obviously, I probably didn't put that together then, but I wanted those toys. I don't know if you guys ever watched that Netflix thing about those, but some of those, like I think He-Man 1 year sold $400 million worth of toys or something like that. So yeah, that was kind of like an early influence on me as a younger kid. Obviously, we had like 4 channels. There was no internet. There was no cable. So Simpsons was something I got to see back in the day when it started. Can't believe it's still going. And then X-Men, Jim Lee, X-Men, like comics. Those are just things that I had access to. My friend who, his dad was a sculptor, he was an artist and drew all the time. So like we kind of had that, which is pretty rare growing up out in the middle of nowhere on the farm. In high school, I had, I took the art classes. I grew up at it's a small school, but we actually had a really good art teacher, and she kind of inspired me to try different things, learn different materials. So that was also, I feel like, something that because I had like, we had two different art teachers. You had the one that he was just like, I don't know, he was just probably doing it because it was an easy character. So like, he wasn't really teaching anything. It was just kind of like people would take that class just to take a class and get an easy credit. But Miss Matisse was her name. She really like did a real art class in high school. So I feel like that was another thing where I was super lucky. I guess I was getting. I guess I needed to go to college. I graduated high school. I was in the, it's like I keep saying, I was kind of in the middle of nowhere. It was 1999, and I was not partying when it was 1999. I didn't know where I was going to go. I just thought I had to go to college. That's what you did. You gotta go to college. So I tried applying to a couple different places. Luckily, the first place I tried to apply was in Nebraska. Luckily, that didn't work out. That was probably one of my first really early art embarrassments, was that. I was just always drawing for myself, doodling, creating characters, doing all that stuff. I hadn't actually had somebody like give me a thing to do, so I didn't even know what that meant. So I went to this little school outside of Lincoln, I think, and it was a graphic design place. Obviously, that's not my strong point. But they like gave me a task to create an ad, I remember, and like it was really my big first event. Like I drew something with crayons and like I don't know, it was bad. I didn't get into that place, luckily. So the next place was Colorado. Once again, I still didn't really know how to do a project, but I had a bunch of different drawings and characters and stuff. I took Polaroids of them because it was either that or a regular film. I didn't really took Polaroids, sent them in, and I got accepted to the college in Colorado. At that time, I think the only thing I may have understood about design or illustration was graphic design, and maybe, I don't even know if I knew the word illustration. Maybe you could draw things like animation or cartoons or something, or comic books. Those were kind of like my only experience of knowledge of what was available out there. So in this school, it was like the year 2000. We did have a few digital art classes, but they were just, it was very beginning. Like, it wasn't something that everybody did. It was on those Macs that were like all different colors. They were all like see-through plastic. I think they were G2s or something. But so, it was fun, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about just different techniques. In that school, they kind of only gave you a couple different like ideas. Like I went for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and then you would do a specialty. And mine was, I took illustration because everything else was like graphic design, interior design, or fine art. None of those things, I didn't even know how I would apply that to my life. So I tried to do editorial illustration. I got through that. It was at the end of graduation, I kind of did my work. We did our portfolio class. Everything was hand painted with wash. That's how I did it. But I kind of got to my end of my graduation, the portfolio class, and they were kind of like, you're a funny guy, but maybe you're not an artist. Maybe you're not a creative person. So I was like, all right, cool. And that was like one of my his name was Larry. He was like the hard professor. Like you wanted to impress him because he was going to just tell you how it was. But so when I graduated, I made sure I gave him a kiss right when I graduated, so that at least we could break down the walls there a little bit. All right, so real life happens. I've graduated. It's probably 2002. At that time, before, while I was in school, I was working in construction rental. I just kept working with that after school. I started trying to do, a little bit of freelance, but I didn't exactly know what that meant back then. Like emailing people was still kind of like new for jobs, so I tried to do that. I think one of the things I tried to get into like magazines and newspapers. That was like a way, but I think one of the big things there was like no one ever asked me for my art degree, and that was kind of confusing because I figured like, you know, once you get out of school, people are like, "Where's your degree? I need to see your degree." And like, I still don't know where it is to this day. But so I did get to start doing, you know, occasionally I got to do some, you know, it's terrible now I can say that, but I got to do some editorial illustration. So I was getting a little bit of work. You know, this period of my life was a real rough time. It was like I graduated college. I was like all amped up, you know, when you graduate, like, I'm gonna get this done, you know. And like you get into real life and like you gotta work, and I could only do it in my free time. And I was getting some, but like nothing to where like it made any, you know, it wasn't making a lot of money or anything. So I, you know, it just, you know, it's just one of those times where I would draw and I would email, but I really just felt like, you know, I was kind of failing at it because I just thought like you had to be successful right away. Like I said, I worked in the construction rental business. You know, I started to do that more time. I started to try to apply for jobs in Denver, Colorado in the year 2002 for creative jobs. There wasn't a lot of that. So everything I applied to, I also didn't get any of that, so I was still just working in the construction job. I love illustration. You know, I thought it was only those after school. I kind of was like, I either can do graphic design or illustration. I was terrible at graphic design, still I am. So I went on illustration. Like I just had to do that. I started to try to like do some of my own things at this time as well. Etsy, when it first started, was a lot different than it is now. I would go to Target and I would buy like cloth purses and I would paint my characters on them, just random stuff that I made up, and I would sell them on Etsy. I tried with a really good friend of mine to create a t-shirt company, as we all probably try. And we did you know, we were young, we just were like, oh, let's get a $4,000 credit card, just rack it up, we're gonna make that money back. That didn't happen. I highly suggest that you don't do that. So it was probably, you know, a lot more of this kind of faltering back and forth. Maybe like 2006, 2007-ish. I finally, like, we were gonna move with my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, but we were gonna move out to the Bay Area. So like, I was kind of excited. It's a new area. I had known a couple people that had like moved to California, not specifically that area, but like had moved to California and like they had got jobs and all this. So I was like, I was pretty excited. Right around that time, this was back early days of the internet, 2000, probably 2007-ish. Found this website. Basically, all websites back then were like, they were just message boards where you would just post your work and like. So I got onto this site. It was called MTs, and it was a site that was you know, all about T-shirts. And at that time, you know, I loved creating for T-shirts. I love creating. I did like Threadless when it first came out. Like that was really cool back. It was kind of different than it is now. There was a couple different sites. I tried all that. I didn't really ever get printed there. Didn't have much success. So that was another like. Ugh. But on this site, you were able to post your work. And at this time, they're like for the band merchandise world. Like literally every band merchandise manager came to this site and bought artwork for bands. So this was kind of the first time like I started to do that, and I realized that like, you know, I really love creating art for products. I just didn't, before that, I didn't really know where my art fit in. So on this site, I was able to post my artwork, post online. You know, I started getting some jobs, started doing some stuff with bands. Every terrible band you can think of in the early 2000s, I did artwork for them. And then obviously, you know, I tried to make my own t-shirt line again. You know, I had to fail that a second time, but I didn't order as much this time, so I learned my lesson a little bit. But had a website, tried to sell t-shirts. I think that website's kind of even still live to this day, but I've never touched it. So, but you know, it was really like the first time like posting artwork online and it leading to jobs. Like that was one of the first like I didn't even know that was a thing until you started doing that, and this was even before maybe MySpace was around, but so it was kind of the first little bit of feedback I got from something other than myself. And the biggest thing about this is, like, you do not want to create art in a vacuum. You know, there's amazing artists out there right now that are better than all of us doing whatever they do, and they're not sharing their work. They're not letting anybody know they exist. If you want to make products, great products, you really got to put yourself out there. Otherwise, nobody's gonna find you. You got to show people your work. So in this time, you know, I kept creating band artwork. You know, I did hundreds of different designs. Like I said, every terrible band I've done something. Sorry, you know what? So I did hundreds of designs for bands. The crazy thing about this is you would think that these companies these merch companies, like, it's all about art and creativity, like the singers, right? But as that trickles down, it gets really, like, they don't pay very well. So, like, I designed, you know, for all these people, and you would think that all these are pretty big names, and you would think that, oh, hey, I'm going to get paid really well. But band merchandise, probably still to this day, is absolutely terrible, except for maybe a few of the top designers. So while it was great for my portfolio, and you know, it obviously helps you, like, at least for me, I mean, it did help me a little bit to see that, like, these larger clients were willing to take my work and, like, sell it on the road and stuff. So that was good. But as far as, like being an adult and needing money, not that great. So we were still in California, and at this time, like, I was probably 28, 29-ish, and we were getting ready to move back to Denver, Colorado. And I decided at that age that, you know what, it was like 2008-ish maybe, and that was when the economy kind of crashed, and first time, and in my life anyways. And around that time, I had decided that after working in the construction rental world for 14 years, I was just gonna jump into freelance. So I was young, and I just jumped into freelance without any preparation. I didn't save any money. I had a little bit of a 401k that I had done at my old job, but I just jumped into it. I had freelance work from the teacher design and, like, merchandise companies, but, like, I don't know if you guys know how that stuff works, but a lot of times they're not reaching out to you to hire you. It's a company, and they're just basically an aggregator. So you, like, the art director hits you up like, hey, I need 10 different designs for this band. Why don't you just submit them? And if you're lucky, you get paid, you know, that kind of thing. So that's how that works most of the time. So, you know, I did that. I just jumped into it. We came back. I didn't have a job. That was my job. And it was a pretty hard time, pretty big struggle to go from having a pretty good job as far as pay, and then, like, benefits and everything, like adult, dental, and all that crazy, to, you know, to basically not having any money. During this time, I had got a $75 check for one of my designs, and, like, I lost that check one night, and I pretty much almost cried because, like, I was down to that point where I didn't have any money. It was a struggle. I had to scramble for every dollar I got. And this period kind of, you'll see where it starts to go here. My girlfriend broke up with me. My wife now, but my girlfriend broke up with me. That was just another real kick in the pants. You know, things were just getting worse. You know, now I lived on my own. We couldn't split our rent, and I couldn't afford anything. So I'm probably like 29, 30-ish at this time, and you know, I couldn't afford rent, so I had to move in with my friends. You know, that was okay. They were my friends. They were a married couple, and, like, I'm just in the way, so I just kind of stayed in my room and, like, tried to disappear while they lived their life. You know, I was broke for all intents and purposes during that time, and so I probably made that last, like, 6 months, 8 months, maybe I pushed that for a year. but I was really living in a bedroom, trying to get as much design work as I could, and I had no money. So the inevitable happens when you have no money and you're a 30-some-year-old man. Guess what you do? You move back home with your parents. That was, you know, that was fun. That was a big blow to my ego at that time. You know, I just had to do it. I didn't have any other choice. I was back home with my parents. My buddy owned a restaurant at the time. I was washing dishes to make extra money to get by. But, you know, this is where kind of the perseverance side comes in. Like, it was not a fun couple years there, but I never stopped creating. I was still drawing. I was still creating. I was just trying everything that I could. Different styles, different techniques, different subject matter. I was just playing around as much as I could. Because, you know, even though, you know, outwardly, I definitely felt like a loser. I was washing dishes and I was living in my parents' house. You know, at my parents' house, they didn't even have, like, I couldn't even use a cell phone at my parents' house. So I worked with this guy who worked like all these big bands, and he'd be like, email me. And he was this kind of guy who was like, I own you when I'm talking to you, like, get here now. And I'd be like, you gotta let me know when you call, because I have to drive 20 miles so I can get to town where I actually have cell phone service. So I was kind of doing a lot of that, a little bit more here. You know, just to like top off this fun transition downhill I had, you know, I was helping my father replace the roof on our house. And, you know, of course, it only gets worse. I fall off the roof. Walking backwards, not paying attention, fall off. This arm here, land on it. I kind of black out. I could barely see anything, but so that was fun. That was one of those breaks where like I had a cast it to here for like 6 months, and then like down to here, and then they cut it down to here. So it took a long time to heal. But the thing is I still had to create artwork and make some kind of money. Obviously, I couldn't wash dishes anymore with my cast on, so I stopped doing that. So, you know, this is where, because previously to this, I was really doing a lot. I would hand draw everything in, and then I would scan it in, and I just had a little like 18 by 11 scanner or something, or 11 by 17 scanner. So like everything I did, I'd draw on the paper and then like scan it in 3 different ways, and then like put it back together in Photoshop. I don't know if you guys ever had to do that now with like all the digital stuff, but so I started doing a lot of digital artwork because I could only use my left hand pretty much for a while, and I couldn't really draw, and the right hand worked with the mouse. So I started doing a lot of digital artwork. So at this time, I need to get out of this situation. I got my cast about here. I can kind of make it work. So move back to Colorado again, and I move in with my now wife. We're back together again. I come back, but you know, I still wasn't you know, making any kind of adult money where you could live a real adult life. So you know, I have to get a real job again. Initially, I really didn't want to go back to a regular 9 to 5. I just felt like I left that part of my life, even though like, living at my parents' house, I'm like, I deserve better. But so for a while, you know, I just brought up those dishwashing skills to like fill in the void. So I did that for a while. But I finally did apply, because I had this like backlog of t-shirt designs that I've been doing for so long. And there was this company that was looking for a t-shirt designer. So for the first time in my life, at the ripe old age of probably 32, 33, I finally get a real art job. And, you know, that felt really good. I kind of felt like a loser. Like I'm using, like when somebody talks to you, you can at least be like, yeah, I'm at least using this 70,000 art degree that nobody ever asked for. So that, you know, it was good. At this job, we made products for people. I designed t-shirts all the time. It wasn't always fun for sure. Like we designed stuff for churches, we designed stuff for restaurants, whatever. Like we did it all. But I learned a lot of skills at that job. And this was really like the first kind of a job where I sat down at a computer for all day. Like previous to that, I was like doing stuff all day, delivering equipment and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of needed something to fill the time. And I found out about this podcast called Adventures in Design. It was kind of starting back then. I think it's been going for 10 plus years now. It's a lot different now than what it was, but in the early days, it was all about creating your own products, doing your own thing. So I was listening to that in the background all the time, and I was just like, you know, maybe I could create my own products. What about that? That was something I learned from that podcast. It was just, they would talk about, you can take your own artwork and just create your own product. So that kind of put that into my mind that maybe I could just take all these drawings and stuff that I've been doing in my sketchbook and maybe actually do something with those that wasn't art directed. So the next kind of thing they talked about a lot was giving yourself a project, just doing it for yourself. And it doesn't mean anything. Nobody has to judge it. You know, it doesn't have to be approved by XYZ. Just give yourself a project. So I was like, okay, I think I can do that. This was in, man, I don't remember the time on this, but it was earlier in Instagram when you could actually post something and people could see it and it was chronological. So you could really, by being consistently posting on social media, like you could really grow your following. So I was like, okay, I'm going to create, you know, a 365, like that was a big thing, create a 365-day art project. So I did that. I gave myself the task of creating a new design every day. So, you know, I did it every day. I would post a design, a new design. I kind of started out like this, and then, you know, I started moving on, trying different styles. But I did it, and I was doing a lot of freelance still at the time. You know, I wasn't doing freelance full time. You know, and freelance really wasn't for me. Like I've never been good at taking art direction like this. Like when I'm doing a project, I think the few times I've done logos, they've all been terrible. You know, like anytime I get feedback, like I'm one of those people with like design. Obviously, this doesn't work well for graphic designers. But like as soon as I get feedback, like I'm just like mentally, I'm like, I'm done. I don't care about this anymore. Whatever. So freelancing full time wasn't for me. And then another big thing that I disliked a lot about freelance was I was trading my one little boss I had during the day at work to 50 mini bosses now. So that's something a lot of people don't think about freelance. Is you're like, oh, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to get away from people and work at home. Well, now you have 10 bosses instead of one, and they're probably even more annoying than your regular boss at work because usually, unless you're doing $50,000, $10,000, whatever is high money for you, usually unless you're doing big projects, those little clients are usually the biggest pain. So, you know, I was doing this and I was like, all right, I'm going to start thinking about what Adventures in Design said and start making some of my own products. So I did. I started just making enamel pens at first. This one right here is actually the first product I ever made, and this version of my company that's currently still running to this day. Obviously, we've all seen the, you know, mom heart, and I was like, oh, that's funny, your mom. So I made that. That was the first thing. I was back when, I mean, pins still do really well this day, but like there was a moment there where like enamel pins were just like super going. So I did that. I created some patches. And you know, like I was just selling them online from Instagram. I was getting a couple orders here and there every week. Nothing life-changing, but it was also, you know, I got some feedback. People wanted to buy my artwork, so that was good. I think it also was like I didn't know, it was like, do people really like my artwork? Like when, like it's just, I didn't really have any feedback at that time, like from other than doing band merch design, and I'd never really like posted any of my just regular artwork before. And I was just like, do people even like what I'm doing? Like, you know, as far as it comes to like design and illustration, being a professional, and I guess it kind of feels a little different saying it now I'm talking, but like I always felt like I was on the outside of the design world. Like I was always kind of like doing my own thing. To me, like I wasn't a good artist. I wasn't like doing anything on social media crazy. So I always kind of felt like an outsider in the design world. So during this time, I had also remembered that with Adventures in Design. They were talking about what if you created your own projects and you went to like farmers markets or different kind of markets on the weekends. Now I lived in Denver at the time, so there was plenty of markets and stuff going on. I never really thought about, you know, what that would mean, or like going out and selling in front of people. But I felt like it was something I should try since I like making products. It's always to get good feedback from people that aren't your friends and family. So I used my full-time job to help me take some risks, because at least now, like my bills were paid, I was making a little bit extra money. So now's the time to take those risks when you have your life covered a little bit, because I definitely, you know, I learned my mistakes the first couple times I did that without having anything backed up. All right, so I want to do a show. I need to get out there and create some products and actually go out there and stand behind this table and sell some products. So here's my first setup. When you first want to try something, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can just use what you have. You can find cheap stuff. Right there is the most beautiful car in the world, 2001 Chevy Cavalier 4-door. That back seat folds down so you can put a lot of shit in that car. I bought these cheap tents at Walmart, and then luckily my girlfriend's dad had these 2 wooden tables that were super heavy, but I used those, they would fold up. Thing I learned down the line was you buy plastic tables that fold from Walmart, make your life a whole lot better. So, you know, I was ready to go out and do a show. So I had my first booth. That's actually the picture from the first time I ever did a real show. I mean, I just have, these are bed sheets from Walmart. This is a whiteboard that I still use to this day, but you know, I just wrote on it with a marker. I had some of the products that I created, hats, pins, patches. I only had a few stickers. I think there's only 6 there. Had these cool water bottles, and then you know, I just had the one sign. That was it. But it felt good to get out there and put myself out there and see if people are going to actually like my artwork, because like I was saying before this, I really just felt like I was not a successful artist, or people didn't really like my work. So, you know, I went to this market. I probably did, you know, maybe $800 or $1,000 that weekend, which was extra money on the side. So that was, you know, that was kind of a life-changing moment there. I was like, oh, okay, like people, like maybe I'm not getting likes online, or like many people aren't ordering online, but actually, and it's kind of weird to say this, but because we create a lot of content, like those people don't matter as much as you think in your real life. Like you can get out there and like go to these markets. So that was a little bit of a life-changing moment. I really felt like, you know, I was probably 36 just at this time. I was really starting to think that before I did this market, like I was never going to be a successful artist, even though I was working at this job, like being an art director, wink, wink. But it just wasn't something that I wanted to do. So, you know, I think the biggest thing is see, there's my great graphic design. I was no longer waiting on someone else to hire me. I was just hiring myself. That's a really big mindset change. I feel like, especially with what all we do, is we're usually like, if I can be freelance, or if I can get these people and get to this job, like somebody's always like art directing you or telling you what to do, and you're just like, what if you just hire yourself? What if you don't need any of that system? What if you just create your own thing? You know, so I did this, and while, you know, things were getting better, you know, it's still the real world, and I still couldn't just quit my job. I did save money, but I still couldn't just quit my job. I had to figure out a way to take my full-time job and use that to leverage myself to quit that job. And I don't know if I said this, but if you guys want to write down any questions or anything, we'll definitely do a Q&A afterwards on anything, more detail, whatever you want. So just so you know. But I still couldn't quit my job. And one of the things I didn't even have this idea. One of the things I learned from this podcast was that maybe you find a utility client that can cover your big bills, that'll give you a little more time to get away from that. So basically what I was trying to do was I was trying to find a client that would pay my rent at least, because I knew that if it could at least cover my rent, I can kind of push off all the other bills, and I can, for a few months anyways, you can kind of like push everything off and nothing's gonna happen. So I did find that utility client. So what I was able to do was use that utility client. They basically paid my rent. I worked there 1 day a week, so I'm working 4 days in a month, paid my rent. And so I went to my boss and I was like, hey, can I not working on Fridays anymore? And it's a small business, so there's like 4 of us. We're kind of friends at this point. So maybe that made that conversation a little easier. It's still pretty hard. And then he was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just taking off Fridays. But that gave me a little more time to start working on my own stuff, give me that extra day. Because one thing I had definitely noticed was, like, especially doing the band merch design, where there was people that were doing that full time, and like I wasn't, and they'd be like, can you talk to me on Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon or whatever? I'd be like, I have a job, like I can't. So like they would skip over me. So this started to help me get some more work as well. The biggest thing from this is, so I had my utility client, I had that extra day off. I was starting to be able to do a little more markets, but I was able to start saving cash. This is really big if you ever want to work for yourself. Don't do what I did when I was younger and just jump into it out of the blue. You want to be prepared. You want to save as much cash as you can. I think I had basically just saved like 6 months worth of rent. And the biggest reason for doing this is, and I'm sure we've all kind of come across this, it's where if you don't have a little bit of that savings or like something set aside, you start taking on jobs you don't want to do, and then you start doing terrible artwork, and you don't want to show that artwork, and you're not proud of it. So it's just kind of this never-ending thing. You're like, I need money, I gotta pay my bills, but then you just start doing all this terrible artwork. So I'm out there, I'm creating, I'm out to doing markets, and I've like just had my generic tent that I showed you before, the blue tent, the black bed sheets. And I noticed, like, when I go to these markets, like all these people all have just the same white tent that everybody buys from Walmart, and nobody's standing out. So I'm like, okay, like what can I do to like help my brand stand out when I do these events? So I go and like, this is probably maybe 6 or 8 months or a year into this. I finally get my first custom tent where like I can stand out. I really feel like I'm like presenting myself as a brand. Like I think, people will take me a little more seriously than a guy with a tent and some bed sheets, even though I'm still rocking that bed sheet. I eventually got a second one, so it looked really cool. But like when you're doing an event and there's just 100 of these or 50 of these sitting there, like this really stands out and helps people recognize your brand. So I did that. We were doing a bunch of events. I was starting to make friends doing these events, and I think one of the biggest things I learned, because I was so used to just emailing everybody and not talking to anybody, was network in real life. How crazy is that, right, these days? But that was kind of what started a real big change for me, was getting to meet these people out there doing markets. Some of these people, they're doing major companies, like you would think they're doing hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars doing these markets every weekend. So I think a lot of people don't think that. But so I started a network, starting to talk to people. I made friends with this couple. They had a company where they made like ceramic pots and different stuff like that. And the husband worked at REI, and like we would talk or whatever. And one day he was just like, oh, he was like, would you like to be an REI? And I was just like, well, of course I would like to be an REI. Just not thinking much about that. This is kind of where the luck part of it, kind of comes in. It just, I talked to that person. Yes, luck is part of everything we do, but if you don't put yourself out there, it's really hard for luck to find you. And I feel like the more you put yourself out there, I know some people just don't like doing social media, but or going out and networking in real life events like this. But this day and age, networking and putting yourself out there like that, this is going to increase your chances of luck working out for you. So I talked to this person. They're like, okay, you want to be an REI? And I'm just like, sure. I don't hear anything. A little while later, I think I had got an email previously, just kind of like saying, hey, here's what we, reached out to me. So I was like a buyer. And then a little while later, REI reaches back out to me through email. That was pretty crazy. They were like, would you like to present your brand at our headquarters in Kent, Washington? And I was like, sure. They used to have this program called the Innovator Series, where you have to make like a little video. I think it had to be at least over 30 seconds to even be able to get approved to get into this thing. So I made that. It's on my YouTube channel. You can see it. YouTube ATOMICCHILD. It's a terrible video. I think I had like maybe an iPhone 4 or whatever it was. I made it. I had to slow it down so it would last long enough. And then I just kind of recorded my voice over it. So I got picked. I went up there. I walked in just dressed basically how I am today. I'm not a big dress up person. I'm just kind of myself. I walk in that room with a bag, just a Ziploc bag, stickers, hotel keychains, one of my keychains called hotel keychains, patches, and I just sit there at the table, and like it's just me, and like as I'm like walking down to this room, it's like glass windows, so like you can see in there, and like I just see like dudes in suits and like people giving presentations, and I'm like, okay. But it was REI, so the cool thing was that the people that came in, it was a small little 10 by 10 room. The people that came in, they were just dressed like everybody in Colorado pretty much dresses casual. So they were all dressed the same way actually, which was kind of reaffirming because I definitely didn't dress up. But they saw that it was just me, and they were like, maybe we can do like an artist series with you or something. And like they're like, 'cause we don't know if you could like handle being in the stores. And then they were like, maybe we can do like a little test with you or something. So I was like, okay, that's positive. So we came back. That was kind of where it got left off. It was a good trip and everything, but there was definitely no like, hey, we want you in our stores or anything like that. I was just like, maybe we'll test you out. So at this time, like we just have to get back to it. Me and my wife, we're doing events all the time. We're out there, never-ending events. Like I'll just show you a bunch of different ones that we've done. I've vended in all the, I don't know what I hit there. I've vended, I don't mean that go away, probably track that. So we're doing all kinds of events. There's my wife doing an event. We're just doing nonstop music festivals, real farmers markets where people are selling foods, then farmers markets where like people are just there to party, breweries. I've done bars. I've done like, I did this one that was like in a bar that was like they were like doing EDM and stuff. Like that was the weirdest one I've ever done because it was like literally just like so loud and like I was like yelling at people to try to contact with them. But another one they did was like we did in this little bar where it was like people were like eating and having a good time trying to enjoy themselves, and like me and this other person were like invited to vend there, but like it'd be like vending at like a restaurant. Like they don't know. It's like so you're just standing there and people are vending and like this is so awkward. So we did a little bit of everything. You really just have to get out there and try everything with events. So when you are going to start start selling your products, do small runs. Don't invest a ton of money like we did my first time when I was in my early 20s, where we get a $4,000 credit card and just charged it till we couldn't charge it anymore. Do a small run. Just do a couple things. Don't worry about cost. I know it's weird to say when you're starting something you want to sell products, but just test something out. Just do whatever the minimum is. Don't worry about cost when you first start out. You really just want to test things out. This is all you want to do when you first start out. Test different markets, test different products, test everything. So like, don't get caught up in like everything we see on social media these days. We're like, oh, I put it on there and it blew up or whatever. It's like, you just need to start out small, go to a market and see if people actually want to buy your goods. Like that's what you care about. You just need to do that. So while we're doing all this, you know, standing in our 2-bedroom apartment. This is where we were running the company, wink, wink. So I was standing in one of the bedrooms, that was the office, and I get a call. Our guy calls back. I'm standing in this room with all this stuff. And you know, it took them a few months, and like they call back, and I'm just like, I figure it's just gonna be this call of, hey, you know, we want to test you out. We want to test you out in a local store or whatever. So that's kind of what I was expecting when I got this call. And so I start listening to her talk, and I kind of noticed the tone's a little different. And this is kind of when like the big thing drops. It's just like, we want to launch you to all 170 of our locations. You know, I'm just like standing in this room like, yeah, I can do that for sure. You know, so take risks. I said yes. I literally had no idea at all how we were going to do this, but I said yes. You know, we have the first order, we get the first PO, but you know, I almost gave up all of this business because even though I said yes to the person on the phone and took the risk, like internally I was like, I don't want to do. Like this is going to be a lot. I have to do all this thing with barcodes and all this stuff. So I didn't know what I was doing. I almost gave this business all away at that moment. I had a buddy that I knew that was kind of running a company, and they were actually in REI already. So he was just going to handle it, and then like I would take a percentage. But luckily that didn't happen. So the first order took us. We packed 30K units with friends and family in this little apartment. We didn't even have a table. This was just an island. We would do it while we ate. Everybody helped out. So the first order goes out. That's it. It's literally the picture of the first order going out to REI, and that was going to be in every store. So the first order that went out was stickers like this here, and then we had some keychains as well. It was pretty crazy. So at this time, we're in this apartment, we're in Denver, and we're getting orders, like I showed you, 30K orders. While that was the first initial order, they were ordering every week after that. And it was anywhere between 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, just depended like what type of season. And we were trying to do that all in this little tiny 2-bedroom apartment on the 5th floor, so everything had to go up and down. So I knew we had to move, and we moved into what I thought was going to be the last place I would ever have to move this business. We found a house with an with an unfinished basement, and for me, when I first walked down here, it was just like, this is going to last forever. Like, look how huge this was. I was running this whole thing out of the basement, so I really thought this little space would last forever. So people were coming over to the house, working in the basement. Maddie's here today. She's the last employee that I have from the basement days. So she's seen it all. She probably remembers the smell of the catwalks down there. Not real good for employees, but no, I was just trying to make it work. So probably I would say at this time we have some sales reps. We're starting to do a little bit of wholesale. We are doing, we're packing orders all the time. Like I knew that because me and Autumn, my wife, and we were initially trying to pack all the orders, and we ended up doing that all day. Like we would get a 10,000, 13,000 piece order, and that's all we would do. And like, if you've ever packed thousands of stickers, you know, it gets old. So I knew that we were growing, got employees. Like there was no way that we could stay in this basement, which I really thought was going to last forever. It's like in my mind, I literally couldn't comprehend getting into anything bigger than this, because this was just the, like probably what I dreamed about before. Like, oh, if I could have my own basement, my own thing, do it all. But you know, this wasn't gonna work. You know, we were getting too much work. It was like 2 flights of stairs. We had to carry everything up and down. That wasn't fun, shipping out orders and everything. So, you know, we moved into the warehouse we're currently in, or sorry, the first warehouse that we're in. And that was another kind of mind-blowing experience. It was 1,500 square foot warehouse. This was the showroom. This was my office, the back room where people would pack. We had a kitchen. Like, that's the other view of the back room. Like, this was, okay, I really thought this would be forever. Like, I was like, there's no way that, like, we can fill up this place. Like, we had employees in there. And we started packing orders. We were in this office through 2020. We made it through that. You know, like in 2020, like at least the first part, everybody stopped doing POs. Like we had, like it was right at the beginning of spring. It was like that February, March time. And that's when like we're in the resort kind of business. Like our stuff is sold in stores at like resorts and national parks and everything. And you know, we had just got like all the POs for the year at that time, and like we had a stack of them, and like it's when you build up your product and like, you're gonna sell them all. And obviously, like March of that year, everything got shut down. Everybody stopped business. REI stopped business, which we were used to doing that every other week. But you know what? The cool thing about that year was everybody really stepped up with online sales because everybody was at home, and we did a lot of online sales to kind of help us get through that. But, you know, then we get to the next year, which was 2021. You know, that was one of our busiest years ever. By the time it's 2021, this is no longer a showroom. This is a storage area. It's packed full of stuff. All these are packed full. You can start seeing this picture. Like it's starting to get packed. Like everything was full. This stuff's all here. And we needed more people. So, you know, another crazy thing happens. That you know, just like I said, we're all packed right here. Like we have all kinds of different products. We got beanies, hats, like we have a little bit of everything packed into this place. Apparel. You know, at this time, like when I started doing this brand, probably like most people, like I just want to create something where I don't have to deal with the real world and I can just draw or create all day and not have to listen to anybody else. But you know, now while the business is to grow your brand, you have to learn the business side as well, which I've been learning every year, like inventory, hiring people, firing people, which is something I never thought I would have to do. You know, just keeping track of everything. Like we kind of run seasonal, so like keeping track of inventory is crazy, and like taxes. Like if you ever create your own business in the beginning, taxes are. It's absolutely insane the amount of taxes you pay working on a small business. But so, you know, I started having to love that side of the business as well. Because if you want to grow and expand, you're going to have to learn to love the business side, unless you have a partner that does the business side, which if you're going to trust somebody to do that, then do that. If that's not your strong point. It's definitely not my strong point. There's people that help me with that. But it's definitely something you have to learn as you scale. It's not something you have to learn at the beginning. You don't have to worry about that. Just sell stuff. So once again, I'm like, we got to find a new office. Which okay, there's no way that we can. We have to find a new warehouse. But yes, we have to find a new warehouse. We move into our current warehouse. This is 3,000 square foot. There's an office in the front where we work. You know, I thought once again, this is it. We're not going to have to move, so it's completely full. You can see what it looks like today. This is the warehouse now with shelving and all the products and everything. This is just stickers right here. There's thousands of stickers there. Probably one of the coolest things that's kind of happened this year that we kind of officially say is that we have sold more than 1 million stickers, which is absolutely wild. You could, if you remember back from that first time I had that little setup for the market, I had 6 stickers there. Obviously, I had never bought stickers in my life. I didn't even know this was something that people were so craven about. I think now too, like everybody has laptops, phones, water bottles, like everybody's trying to like make everything look like their own, so that probably has a lot to do with it. But yeah, I would have never imagined that we would have sold 1 million stickers. Right now, some of the biggest hurdles that we have to kind of get over is our inventory. Inventory is, I never thought I would think so much in my life about inventory in a warehouse. Like it's absolutely crazy. We've tried different programs and everything, so that's kind of some of the growing pains. Some of the growing pains with a business of this size is cash and having money to actually have all those products. The way we work, stuff comes in, stuff goes out. It's nonstop. So your cash flow, I spend a lot of time worrying about cash flow. So that's another worry I never thought I would have to do. So yeah, this is where we're at now. We probably have 6 or 7 people in there right now. People sit back over here every day packing orders. We have a shipping manager who currently she's doing 2 roles. She does shipping and admin. We have Maddie right here who does, she's our problem solver now. We have everything from painting a sign to figuring out inventory to paying commission to sales reps. Maddie does all that. Tyler's up front with me. He's right here, does all of our content. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Some of the takeaways about this, I hope you take away is instant success doesn't happen for most of us. Now, I know I've kind of said this before, but early on in the talk, especially with social media now, you see people like start a brand and automatically like it blows up, and you're like, yeah, that's how it works. But for all of us regular people, instant success doesn't happen. You got to work hard. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of times you live with your parents in your 30s. It's not fun. But not the only reason, but a lot of times, the only reason people don't succeed is because they quit. There was many times where I should have probably quit as an adult and went and got a real job and just gave up on that, but I never quit. This company, I was probably 36-ish when I started this, like full-time. So I had pretty long time of failing, like even kind of towards that age, like even my parents were like, you do something like an adult, so, you don't have to be successful in your 20s to make it. I know, and I'm sure it's probably even more now, but I think everybody thinks you have to start something as soon as you get out of college, and you have to be successful, and you have to get it made. But as long as you're, putting in an honest effort with your work, and you're actually creating every day, trying new things, getting better, posting online, creating content, showing people you're working, if you consistently do that, you're going to be successful at some point. Some people, there's different pain points where you're just going to hit them and be like, you know what, I give up, I'm just going to go get a job. But I promise you, if you really try hard, and not just like say you are to people, but actually trying hard and creating and doing it yourself, you can be successful. I didn't get successful, quote unquote, whatever that means to you. And obviously there's a million different types of success. You don't need a company like this. I could have probably just kept doing markets. There was 1 year with just me and my wife and maybe a friend helping. We did over $100,000 just doing markets. So like you can get it to wherever you need to get it. That makes it your size that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to keep growing like this. Post your work. Use social media as a tool, especially now these days when Instagram, like that was kind of my favorite one, but now it's just kind of weird. I'm sure as you all know. But if you think about social media as a tool instead of social media, then you can kind of like just gamify in your head. Be like, okay, this is a tool to help me get work. This is a tool to help me let people see your life. Like I try to post every day, at least on stories. I think, especially now with brands, it's like so easy to start a brand. Like you can all go home right now, start a Squarespace, start a Shopify page. You can do one of those DTG shops that you just connect with there. Boom, we can all have a new brand right, in a couple hours. And it's like, how do people find you? Like, well, how do they connect with you? And it's really just posting on social media, just treating it as your second job, just do it. You have to do it. Especially if you want to sell products. If you don't, maybe it's a different thing, but if you want to sell products, people need to connect with you. It can't just be like, oh, buy my shoe, buy my slide, buy whatever's cool, whatever the cool kids are selling right now. So like use social media as a tool. Just think of it that way. Just get it out of your mind like it's a tool. Like when I first started doing it all the time, it felt weird. Now I've got Tyler following us around everywhere doing social media. We post stories and stuff all the time. The next thing, a lot of people like to chase trends, which is fine. If you're really passionate about that thing, do it. But the word itself, trend, it's usually, if you build a brand around a trend, it's only going to last a certain amount of time. You want to do something you're passionate about. If you're going to create products, I feel like that's the best best way to have a successful brand. And then lastly, just don't give up. Like, so many people just give up on what they want to do. There was many times that I should have, but I didn't. So don't give up. Just keep pushing. Lastly, this isn't just me anymore. This is a full team of people. Maddie's here. Tyler's here. This is the rest of my team. Nothing happens now just by me. I still draw shit all the time, but this is how everything keeps in order, gets orders out, information. Like, you can't do without a team. And then lastly, thank you to my wife and my little baby Harper. Autumn's the unsung hero of this whole thing. She believed in me. I wasn't making any money, and I was a pretty big failure, so I couldn't do without her. And then the last thing is there any questions? Thank you so much.
So you kind of just got at this a little bit because you said you still draw all the time, but I would love to know, now that you're having to really run the business and you're scaling at such a level, how often do you actually get to create, and are you creating for your business versus independently? And then what is the process like? How often do you guys debut new designs, or what happens? Do you get feedback from your clients where they're like, "We made this sticker, never send it to us again"? What is that experience like?
So I've kind of taken the stance that I know what I want to create, and so I just pretty much create things that I want to create. I don't take too much feedback. At this time though, we've been selling, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've sold millions of dollars worth of products. So you kind of know what products people are looking for, what designs people like. But really, I just design stuff. As far as releasing it, that's something I need to get better at, because I just like to make products. That's really my favorite part of this whole thing, is creating something and seeing it turn into a 3D thing. When I was a kid watching cartoons and seeing it turn into a real thing. So I love when I draw something and then it becomes a real object. So we definitely need to get better at making releases. But currently, I just make stuff, get professional pictures taken. If you can do that, definitely get professional pictures taken of your stuff. Obviously, people have iPhones now. You can probably do a pretty good one.
And then I figure it out.
And then Maddie figures it out. I just release stuff, and Maddie's a problem solver, and she figures that out. As far as what was the other question? It was, how much do I get to do a lot of artwork? Not really. So I definitely do way less artwork now than I've ever done in my life. Part of that is just the size of our business and everything that's happening, and just all the stuff in the back end that I got to keep track of with inventory and stock, and we just got in I think it was 4,500 new beans just so we had stock to sell through the winter season. We just gotta go through the process doing that, and then I also just have a 16-month-old daughter, so my my free time is a lot less than it was. So yeah.
Are you the only artist, or do you have?
Just me. Just all I do is I'm really old school. I click on the mouse right here with this finger and I draw it all in Photoshop. That's it.
Sorry, did this all start because you assigned yourself a project for the 365 days?
That was the beginning, because when I did that, I started getting more freelance work, and I realized that people wanted to put my stuff on products. That's where a lot of it went. But yeah, it all started there. That was the very beginning of just kind of changing my thought. Hey, create your own thing, do your own thing. That was definitely the very beginning of that. Yeah.
Other than Google, where do you find your next festivals or your markets that you tend to go to?
So the biggest thing with that, there's sites where you can Google farmers markets, but sometimes you can get some kind of weird, different things. I think the biggest thing is you find if you go to there's usually in the cooler, hipper parts of town,
You network with them?
there's usually some sort of festival or something that'll be happening. If you figure out who's managing that, and if you can get into that or do that, usually as soon as you start one market and you actually put yourself out there and talk to the people around you, there's going to be some people that have done 10, 20, 30 different ones, and they're going to know the good ones. They're going to be like, don't do this one. like as you get to know them. So that's kind of how I learned. I didn't really Google anything. I just found. I don't even remember how I found the first one, to be honest with you. I probably Googled it and found it, but I found that one. I started talking to people, and then they were like, "Do this next thing, do this next one." But like, there's a couple. I don't know if they do them here, but like Jackalop's a big one. They do them all over the United States. I think Renegade Craft Festival all over the United States. So there's ones like that as well. But yeah, it's all from just getting out, networking, and figuring out which ones are going to be good or not.
Where did the brand name come from?
All right, so it's good. Starts with an A, I guess. So when I was 21, my favorite artist was Keith Haring, and he had a kind of drawing that he called like the Radiant Baby. And like during the early 2000s, like I had a website called JimmyBryant.com, which is James Bryant, Jimmy Bryant, most generic name in the world. Nobody's gonna find that on accident. So I came up with ATOMICCHILD. It was kind of when everybody was like creating names, so I just created ATOMICCHILD, and I thought that was cool. I never thought that I would be 43, and that would be the name of my brand. It's cool though. It stands out. It's completely different than anything else in the outdoor area. Yeah, that's how it came up. And it also starts with an A, so it's like so I have like a licensing deal through the company. And like, since my name starts with an A, it's like licensees, ATOMICCHILD, then Coca-Cola. So I just left it having it starts with an A, so that's cool. Any other questions?
Have you had any challenges so far in terms of like licensing or intellectual property or any of that kind of like what has that experience been like?
So I have had definitely some challenges. You can think about when you're selling millions of products, a lot of stuff starts happening. It's kind of interesting. We're in a law firm. I had to hire a creative lawyer, and if it's an egregious attempt, I have to pay a lawyer and I've had to do this a few times, to go out and let people know that, hey, I'm a real boy, this is a real brand, and you can't just steal my artwork. But yeah, I have a lawyer, a creative lawyer that does all that for me.
Have you had anything like in the reverse? I guess what scares me about product is like there's certain iconography, like especially in the outdoor space, you've got like certain like mountain sunset things, like Bigfoot, whatever.
Yeah.
Is most of that just like open, public enough, or has there ever been anything where people are like I'm a Bigfoot person, yeah, like this is my thing?
I think you just kind of have to figure out your kind of different way. For me, like, I started out one way and I've kind of changed how, like, I kind of do this different illustration stuff. Like, it helps to change and try different things, but, it's for me, it's like, there's definitely people who are copying stuff that I've done and they just put their own spin on it, and it's not egregious enough where you can actually go after them. So it's just like, how many different ways can, draw mountains and trees? A lot, actually. So, it happens. You just have to see if it's like actually, is it like super copying? Because it's like, I don't own a Getty, like I didn't make that shit up. Like that's just been around forever. So, or a peace sign, like, that's kind of one thing I like to do when I design is like find an icon, fill that icon in with my style of art, so it kind of has two different meanings for people. But yeah, there's only so much you can do if it's not exactly like your artwork. You can't really do much about it. At least at my size, I can't pay a lawyer to keep going after it forever. So unless it's egregious, it just has to be what it is.
I guess it's now that when you're working with RAI and you're already having your side business with ATOMICCHILD, was your contract more when you were creating artwork for RAI, was that a separate deal, or was that more like what you made for your own business was also being sold in?
So the crazy thing about that is there's no contract settled with RAI. So I technically could probably take any of the things that I'm doing with them and do something else. I make my own products. I even still sell all those stickers on the website and events. So I would say maybe if I don't know how large it would have to be where they would care, but they're actually a really cool company. They are called a Co-op. But yeah, so I haven't had any of those problems. I think if another big company like that, like an outdoor brand, like a national retail chain, when they carry the exact same stickers, I'd probably say no and be like, hey, I've got 1,000 other designs you can pick from. So that would be and that's just on me. There's no contract that says I can't do that. I've sold plenty of the same stickers that are in that store 1,000 times over. So
Those were yours first too.
yeah, and they were mine first. That's a big thing too. Is like nowadays I don't really do freelance work anymore. No way, hate that stuff. And the big thing for me, and the biggest reason I don't do that is because this is my intellectual property. This is how I make a living. If I'm selling that to a bunch of different people and all of a sudden everybody has my artwork as their logo, their t-shirt, their whatever, like it's just, people can go somewhere else and get it. The only way you can get my artwork is you got to come to me and buy it. Like, so I think as you get bigger, that becomes more and more precious. It's like you got to make them have to come to you. Otherwise, what's the point when it's your, like, this is my living. Like, I'm not trying to do another thing. Like currently, like this is how I make my living. So people got to come to me and get my artwork. Anything else?
Not related to this, how did you feel about the bait and switch on the He-Man reboot?
I didn't watch it.
Okay.
I have no time for, now that I have a child, my TV, I haven't even watched the last Stranger Things. I'm behind on everything now. So now that this is my full-time, like I used to go home every night and draw, but like now I you know, if I need to, I can do that at work, at the office. I usually just go home and spend time with my family and daughter now. So I'm way behind. Way behind on TV. I don't see me catching up for that probably forever. Now that I have a child. Anything else? Any other questions?
What's next? Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, good question. It's kind of, I don't know.
The next warehouse.
Yeah, the next warehouse. Like that's what I think about the most is like, what am I gonna do for the next warehouse? The next warehouse, I'll probably get a 10,000 square foot warehouse or more, just so like we don't have to move again. Moving into a bigger warehouse, getting our inventory locked down, getting more outside sales reps, growing it. Like I just like it's. Once you like, I'm really excited about the back end. Like, it's like, how big does this need to get? I think long-term goal for me is like, I feel like this day and age, there's not a lot of people creating their own world, their own IP that's all for them. It's not based off of Garfield or Simpson. It's not based off anything. It's just my own personal IP. So you know, long ways down the road, I hope that we can build a company that maybe, I don't know how big it needs to be to get people interested, but I hope that maybe down the road they'll see that I have decades and decades of IP that's all for me. Nobody else owns it, and hopefully, you know, maybe somebody be interested in either buying whatever that means, the company, or at least interested in, you know, the IP. Because I just feel like a lot of brands are doing collab stuff with like popular nostalgia stuff, which is super huge right now. Probably, you know, nostalgia stuff's forever, but I just feel like it's a long-term play with all my own original IP, and I don't know where that's going to end up. I don't know how crazy it's going to be. Probably the next biggest thing for me is like, hopefully I can find somebody to like help like run it, and I don't have to sit and do that as much because the whole thing is based off me creating art, and I don't really do that as much. So that'd probably be the next biggest thing.
Do you have any inspirational brands or aspirational brands?
There's a lot of brands that I follow of like people that are kind of doing their own thing. Tuesday Bassan is a really cool brand, I think, out of LA. I followed her for a long time. She's doing her own, completely own thing. There's this guy called Night Watch Studios. He does like cool, like Santa Cruz type of artwork style. You know, I like some of the bigger brands, but like all the little brands that are like, they're doing their own thing, creating their own universe. Like that's the stuff I like to follow. There's something I just found online. I think she's called I See What I Want to See, or I See What I See, something like that. Like she does this really cool brand with like inspirational quotes and stuff about mental health. And it's just cool to like see somebody, you know, and I've done this, but it's like grow it from your parents' basement to a warehouse. Like it's that kind of stuff's cool for me to watch people kind of take that similar path and like know that you kind of control your future. Nobody else controls your future. So I like those kind of any kind of brand I can find like that just kind of inspires me and gets me. Anything else? If you guys want, I have stickers. So if you don't have any other questions, come up here and I can bring one to you. Thank you. Hope I did all right.
thank you all for coming out. We've been working really hard to get things back up going, so it's really rewarding to see the full house tonight. So hope you stay involved and keep up with us on Instagram and Eventbrite and whatnot to see what else we're doing. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay, we'll see each other again.
Okay.